Welcome to the second lesson of Part 2 of America's Freedom Seminar. We're ready to learn other concepts that form the foundation for the Constitution. To do so, we need to go back in history. Where shall we begin? When Washington, D.C. was created? No, we have to go long before it was built, back even to the beginning of history. In the beginning, God made man and woman. But what does Eve have in her hand? From the beginning, man was made with the freedom to choose. God provided many options to choose from. To help us, He gave mankind a code of laws so that by following them, people would find happiness and peace. Do we accept these laws as a blessing, or do we feel imposed on, bossed around, and that God, if there is one, doesn't have the right to interfere with our personal whims and plans? Our human nature automatically rebels at being told what to do. More power, more freedom at any cost overrules the golden rule sometimes. This is pure selfishness. Human nature wants power at the expense of others. In fact, it wants to replace God in our lives. On the other hand, human nature contains another characteristic, a tendency to be loving. To be loving is to care about yourself as well as the well-being of others. In fact, only when we love others do we want to respect the rights of others. Does this sound slightly familiar, like the Golden Rule? Therefore, moral governments, and only moral governments, are instituted to maintain our equal rights from God, and only those who love themselves and their neighbors will uphold it. That should explain most of the evil we see in America today. Let's note that freedom and slavery both come from the same human nature in man. It would greatly benefit us to understand what we're talking about. Human nature is very complicated, often unpredictable, and has been, and still is, debated by various philosophers. This hints that if they can't figure it out, why should we even try? Want to give it a whirl anyway? I'm willing if you are. Well, truly a picture is worth 1,000 words, but I think we can do better than that. Let's invent a definition you'll probably not find anywhere else, but it beats all the philosophers that I've ever read. All they did was confuse me. We're sitting up straight, our brains are humming, and we're about to instruct all the philosophers, ancient and modern. Human nature is man's mind, combined with his emotions, divided into many levels of high and low priorities. We're talking about what we value, and that we put some values higher than others. From our private pyramid of values, we will make choices. Some choices, of course, are more important than others. People have different lists of priorities. 1 hour it may be food, while his neighbor chooses a nap at the same moment. Human nature also includes a person's peculiar personality instincts and habits, which are his tendencies, his probable choices under given conditions. All of the above, along with independent thought, are contained within one organism. Now you know why the philosophers have been so stumped in trying to describe human nature. Predicting somebody else's behavior is too complicated for an outsider to unravel very well. That's because we're dealing with about 10 trillion cells in his brain, not one of which knows what the others are doing. We're all faced with too much to consider, so we have to make generalizations along with many presumed guesses. Here is the problem we all face within ourselves, without worrying about anybody else. And this is very big. It's gigantic. Our task is to learn to choose our higher human nature and make it the leader rather than permitting our lower nature to rule. This leadership is literally the key to our freedom and happiness. We must choose the higher road with its higher purposes and let the lower road remain in charge of only lower functions where it belongs. It's not the low road that is bad. It is just incompetent to lead the body at a higher level than itself. To choose the low road is like turning loose the reins of your horse and letting it take you where it wants to go. It's like abdicating the throne to an incompetent child. Just as some horses will try to scrape you off on a low branch, don't let go of the reins. Stay in control from your position on the saddle, which is your highest nature, and guide the horse away from danger. In this way, the horse is led by a higher intelligence, likened to the physical body serving our higher spirit instead of the other way around. Our higher moral values are far more rewarding to all levels of our human nature than being irresponsible and letting the body coast and gravitate to whatever lust it wishes to fulfill. Let's return to our friend James Madison. He has something to say about human nature.
As there is a degree of depravity in mankind which requires a certain degree of distrust, so there are other qualities in human nature which justify a certain portion of esteem and confidence.
So you see, the founders of our country are quite up to date in their thinking. They knew about human nature, and with that understanding they designed the Constitution. They used several ingenious methods to combat our lower human tendencies, like greed, while on the other hand, conserving individual rights that do not belong to anyone else. That's what conservatives are defending today. Republican government presupposes the existence of these high qualities in a higher degree than any other form of government. The highest morals residing in the people are needed to deliver the richest rewards for all. The good we do is therefore multiplied. Again, the richest blessings come from the highest standards, not from the baser wants of man. This is God's way, to use the highest standards. That's why God is the richest and most powerful being in the universe. That's why we are wise to listen when He gives us advice, because it's for our own benefit. So let's get personal. What choices have you made in your life? Is your freedom growing because of them, or is it shrinking? We know that our personal freedom relies in great measure upon the moral fiber of the public, both near and far. In the next lesson, we'll discuss whether secular or religious men should rule in government.